Good morning, everybody. It's your girl Miracle Sims, and you are listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. It is October the 26th, 2022, and today the topic is Wise Beyond Our Years with Jesus. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope that you all had a great day yesterday. Mine was just fine. For the most part, I was kind of just mentally preparing, resting. That's what yesterday looked like to me. Um, Outside of being a mom, yeah, that's what yesterday looked like. The only thing of significance to share that I did was financial fitness. I did financial fitness. Um, it's been a good process to observe and be in this group of people that are communicating about wanting to do things differently when it comes to finances and everything like that. And listening to the videos that we listen to in the, I guess you would call it, class and everything like that, it's very good. Like, it definitely puts things into perspective every time I go. And so, there's some things that I've started to incorporate. There's some things I haven't started yet, but for the most part, I would say that it's been a good experience, right? I guess I'll bring up financial fitness because in a way, it kind of leads to my topic today. Long story short, basically, so this morning, the Lord woke me up at 2:39. And the interesting thing was, as soon as I looked at the clock and it said 2:39, it switched to 2:40. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just look at verses around both, right? And so I was just pretty much up the whole time. I looked up the verses and so here's one thing that I've started to do. This is a random side note, but anyway, I've started to clear out, like, how you can have so many windows open on your, when you're looking on the internet on your phone. And so I've tried to get into the habit of every morning just clearing all my windows and starting fresh. Because my thing is, like, now back in the day, I used to look at them and be like, oh, I might have something that I was working on. But now I'm like, you know what? It's a new day. I'll start fresh and whatever. So that's what I did this morning. I cleared it out and I Googled Bible 239 and then I Googled Bible 240. Then I started doing other stuff. I didn't look at the verses or whatever. I just started doing other stuff. And so I didn't go back to sleep and everything like that. And so by the time our alarm went off at 4, I did my prayer meditation, X, Y, and Z. And eventually I felt led to go back to those verses. So I went back to read what I, looked up this morning. And it was interesting because these are the verses that I came across. So Acts 2:39 says, for the promise is unto you and to your children and to all that are afar off, even as many as the Lord our God shall call. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good, Then I came across Luke 2:40, and it says, and the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Now, in some ways, I felt like this was like a little, I don't know, for confirmation for me about me or something. So I was like, okay, this sounds nice, Lord. You giving me wisdom, or something like that. And then I went deeper, And when I read that second verse, I come to find out that was specifically talking about Jesus, right? And I'm like, okay, it's talking about Jesus, X, Y, and Z. But then last night came into my heart and mind, what happened in the group. And I just was like, oh, Lord, what do you want me to say about that? It's not that something bad happened per se, but I'm just going to share. So basically, long story short, what had happened was we're in the midst of the group. And I want to say it was after we watched the video and the group leader was asking us, like, what was our takeaways, X, Y, and Z. And one of the first ladies to respond, she didn't necessarily have a takeaway, but she had a question. She had a question about giving and, like, when is giving too much, X, Y, and Z. And so I was listening to her question And I started feeling like a little prick in my heart, but I was like, okay, the lady was asking, she asked the lady particularly. So, I was letting the lady answer the question, but then the lady didn't necessarily answer the question. She just was like, oh, we can talk later, blah, blah, blah. So then the next lady that spoke up, she also had a question about giving. So then I felt like the Lord was like, share your testimony, basically. And so when she finished asking a question and it didn't seem like it was getting answered or whatever the case was, I was like, hey, I feel led to share my testimony about giving. And y'all should know it at this point. I think y'all know that, I went through this struggle with, should I give? Should I not give? I'm giving grudgingly. I want to feel better about giving, that whole shebang. I wrote a whole blog post about it. But anyway, so hopefully you're familiar with what I'm talking about. If not, you guys have to probably go back to one of my videos talking about giving. But anyway, so I was sharing that testimony. I was trying to share it in a quick way, and eventually one of the ladies kind of cut me off and was like, oh, well, they're talking about something different. They're talking about people they know. And I'm like, I understand that, I understand that they're talking about people that know, but this is what the Lord showed me at that time with my giving testimony, like in general. And it's like when it came to giving finances as well as giving of my time, you know what I'm saying? And I tried to say that, right? But then once again, the lady was like, oh, they're not talking about that, blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, okay, well, she just obviously doesn't understand what I was saying. I hope that, since I got cut off twice, I just kind of let it be at that point. And I was just hoping that the people was understanding what I was saying, because my thing was like, hopefully my testimony would, kind of give them some type of encouragement in the area regarding their giving. I know that my giving testimony wasn't the same, but at the same time, it was something, what I learned about giving was what I was really trying to share, if that makes any sense. So anyway, and then it seemed like, now I don't know, maybe it was some sound issues. So I would give that, but it seemed like, we were supposed to be answering our questions about what we receive. And so I had mentally prepared to go ahead and just say my thing quickly, or whatever. But it seemed like I got skipped over. Now, I don't know, but it seemed like it was like, oh, Miracle already has said what she needed to say. So it was like, oh, okay, well, actually, I just was trying to help the other people with my statement. I didn't say what I had learned, but okay, I just, again, let it be. So anyway, as I was reminded of all this morning, I'm like, Lord, what you want me to say? What you want me to say? What you want me to do? And I was wondering to myself, like, was it that, now, I don't know if I'm the youngest person that is on the chat, but, I'm one of the younger individuals, I would say. But even with me being young, I mean, and even with like a lot of the other people, men and women or whatever, they're being my elders, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's just like, again, we're all adults. It's not like I'm a teenager in the midst of grown folk. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm 36. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't know how old everyone else is. I know there's a couple of other younger ladies that I'm assuming are my age range. So I'm like, why is it that it seemed like my feedback wasn't welcomed? That's how it seemed. I'm just anyway. So yeah, I was wondering if it was an age thing, and I'm like, well, maybe it's a me thing. At the end of the day, maybe I didn't communicate it clearly, what I was saying, but I just was like, how can you communicate something fully when you're getting cut off? One, two, again, the person cutting me off, I felt like they weren't hearing what I said. Like, I understand that, you know what I mean? I understand that my testimony is, I came into, like, when I first started talking, I was like, hey, well, I have a giving testimony that might assist these ladies with their giving questions. And ultimately, I just was sharing that, and sharing what I had done to be more at peace with giving. And that was the juice of that conversation. You see what I'm saying? But regardless, regardless. So I'm studying, I'm like, well, Lord, maybe I need to communicate better. So I'm starting to look up verses around like better communication and in X, Y, and Z. And this funny thing is I kept seeing things centered around, a fool, X, Y, and Z, of how they basically in regards to listening and stuff. And I wrote those verses in the Go Deeper section today, but I more so feel led to share the verses that are centered around being wise beyond our years with Christ. At the end of the day, whether or not it was truly meant to be something that was like, oh, because you're young or whatever, I don't know. I don't know what the intentions or the heart behind the person that cut me off, and didn't seem to understand what I was sharing. But here's what I came across this morning outside of those verses. So now there's a verse I wrote down, but I ended up just putting it in the Go Deeper section because, again, I'm not trying to call the individual a fool or something, but those verses help me get some understanding about like how to deal with or how to understand what I might be dealing with when it comes to different scenarios. So yeah, I would say, if you guys need to read those verses, they're in the Go Deeper section. I'll think about whether I should share the one that I actually wrote down. But here's one to hopefully encourage and inspire those of us that might be a little young, right? At the end of the day, I guess I just feel like God will use anybody who is willing to be used by God. Whether you are young or old or what, you know what I mean? And so when things like this happen, it can be a discouragement, right? It can be something that's like, well, maybe I, shouldn't say, or maybe because I'm not, I'm in here trying to learn about financial fitness, like I should have just let the elders say or whatever. But if this is supposed to be like a open group to chat or whatever, but whatever, you know what I mean? Regardless of all that, if we or you, whoever's listening to the sound of my voice, if you, for example, are young, right, and you are being used by God in this season, which I feel like he's using a lot of young people in this season, again, these things might happen and it might discourage you along the way. You might feel like, man, I might not be qualified to say or do whatever the Lord is telling me to say or do. Here's hopefully something that will encourage and inspire you today. 1 Timothy 4:12 says, let no one despise you for your youth, but set the behavior and example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. If you guys go deeper and read the entire 1 Timothy 4, it will be encouraging and inspiring to you. And then here's another thing that came into my heart and mind this morning as well about this, and I did share one account in the Go Deeper section. I was reminded of Solomon this morning. Solomon exercised more wisdom in his youth than he did in his adult life. In his youth, he seeked the Lord for wisdom because he understood that, well, Lord, I'm young. I don't know how to lead a nation in X, Y, and Z. I'm seeking your wisdom. You're asking me, what do I need from you? I'm saying that I need wisdom, and God was pleased with that, right? And that was in his younger years. Now, when he became a man and, X, Y, and Z, he got all them wives and whatnot, he got off track a little bit. Same thing with David, who's his father, if I'm not mistaken. It's the same David that, in his youth, he was a man after God's own heart. X, Y, and Z, got a little older. He started doing things, getting with Bathsheba, had a husband killed, all these different things, right? So age, right, isn't always the indicator of wisdom. I think with Christ, even in your youth, you can be used, you can be wise, and that's the juice. That is the juice ultimately today. Again, we all can go deeper with the things that are in the Go Deeper section. There are some verses there that hopefully will help us to understand like why certain things happen. But then hopefully, again, I just really want to encourage and inspire anybody that is in this position in this season. Because, if God is using you to speak or whatever the Lord is using you to do, we can't get discouraged along the way just because we're young. Or something like that. Speaking of, I want to give a shout out to my mom. She gave me some confirmation yesterday, and it was crazy because I'm like, it's just the Lord, because it's not even me at the end of the day. It's just the Lord, because yesterday morning, I think I told y'all, I was like, at one point I didn't know what to talk about, and then eventually that had came into my heart and mind about, being barren and all those different things that I shared yesterday. And she let me know that later on that evening that that it was encouraging to her and it was confirmation for her in some ways and stuff. And I'm just like, well, to God be the glory that. And then she just was like, my child is basically encouraging me and da 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 da. She just felt good about that, and I felt it was nice to get that confirmation. Again, I don't know who listens and outside of her and you, and I don't know who all listens to this and stuff. So it's nice to get confirmation every now and then that, hey, this blessed me, or hey, this encouraged me, or hey, yeah, those things is an encouragement and whatnot. And so yeah, this is just something that's to hopefully encourage and inspire us, y'all. As long as we stay in Christ, especially when you're in your youth, you can ultimately be wise beyond your years. And yeah, that's the juice, y'all. That's the juice. The Bible verse of today is Psalm 34:19. It says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. Friends, I hope you all enjoyed this juice this morning. Thank you so much for listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. I pray you guys can go forth and have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow, if the Lord's will. Bye-bye. And there you go, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, anybody listening to the sound of my voice. I hope that you all are encouraged and inspired. Again, like I said, I mean, no shade to the people, you know what I mean? No shade to any of the individuals. I think, I tried to do, what I felt like the Lord was having me to do in that moment. Like I said, I hope and pray that the ladies that, while I was sharing, and whatnot, I hope that they received what I was saying and that it can be an encouragement and an inspiration to them when it comes to their giving issues and giving questions that they had. I'm not saying trying to act like I'm all this or that, at the end of the day, again, I still take accountability, because I'm like, well, maybe I didn't, execute or say things in a way for the person to understand, even though I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'm laughing right now because I feel like the first thing I said before I said anything else was, hey, I got a testimony about giving that maybe will encourage and inspire, you know what I mean? Or maybe help with these ladies in their questions. So it's a testimony, you know what I'm saying? It's not that I was saying that what I went through is exactly what they're going through, but it's like maybe there was something that I learned in that they could use for their particular situation. But I felt like that was being cut off by the individual. And then it just kept, and I think the thing that bothered me most about that was that it kept being like it was said twice that that's not what they're talking about. And I'm like, because I said it the first, like it got said one time. I said, I understand that that's not what they're talking about, X, Y, and Z. And I was trying to explain some more. And then it got cut off again to say some more, and then ultimately again come back to that's not what they were talking about. And I just like, okay, well, I'm gonna let that be, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is, man. Just interesting. That's what I got reminded of this morning. That's what I studied, and that's the juice. Again, I hope these things encourage and inspire you. If you're young, do not be afraid to, don't doubt, right? Don't doubt what the Lord is doing with you, for you, and through you. Because you can be used. Just because you're young don't mean you can't be used by the Lord. Like, again, with God, you can be wise beyond your years. But anywho, look forward to talking to y'all tomorrow if the Lord's will. Bye-bye.